Elon Musk is now sharing something on X. That should make everyone think about Bitcoin. Samson Mow talks about a major danger to Bitcoin that almost everyone underestimates. At the same time, we're seeing massive purchases from Saylor. We see a massive article in the Financial Times reporting on Bitcoin adoption, why the big players are now betting on Bitcoin. At the same time, we see the Bitcoin price rising again. And we're going to take a look at that now because some really exciting things are happening behind the scenes. First, we see that MicroStrategy, or rather, Saylor, or rather, now it's just called Strategy, where he bought 7,600 Bitcoin as expected. They now have 478,000 Bitcoin. It's really crazy how it's been increasing piece by piece. And they have now temporarily suspended the purchases. There were some foundations that said, oh, doesn't MicroStrategy want to deal with Bitcoin anymore? But no, we're seeing they're still buying, though. That was due to regulatory reasons that they temporarily suspended their purchases. And then Elon Musk actually shares something here that should really make every Bitcoin holder think. He writes here, wow, and refers to a post. And here you can clearly see how the purchasing power of the US dollar keeps decreasing. We're looking at a comparison between 1913 and 2024. And of course, Elon Musk wants to do something about the US dollar getting stronger again. I'm very skeptical. I've said this before. They want to audit the Pentagon now. Then they want to audit the Federal Reserve. Then they also need to audit other institutions in the USA. But the idea that the dollar could somehow become a good store of value again, we're really far from that. Or rather, the dollar has never been a good store of value. As you can see here, in 1913, we had 100 US dollars. Then in 1963, the 100 were only worth $25 in purchasing power. And now in 2024, those $100 have shrunk down to just $3. And that's really the crazy part that confirms why we absolutely need Bitcoin. Because otherwise, purchasing power is just going to take a massive hit. And then there's actually a very, very interesting assessment from the Financial Times that basically addresses institutional Bitcoin adoption. I've also reported a few times in the last few days that the institutional players are actually, some are getting in on it, and the buying sentiment is really strong. Here it shows that retailers are really missing out on a lot of this. The Financial Times says that cryptocurrency venture funds are seeing an influx of capital from foundations and funds that were sitting on the sidelines just a few years ago. Saylor also comments down here that institutional acceptance of Bitcoin is currently on the rise, meaning that institutions are getting involved. We're really seeing this with companies like Saylor Scientific and others that are raking in huge profits. It's the best performing stock in all of Japan. What am I even rambling about? I don't mean Saylor Scientific. I mean, of course, here, Metaplanet. Saylor Scientific is definitely building on Bitcoin, but I mean here, Metaplanet. There's also a really cool tweet from the blog trainer. Here is the Bloomberg article. It mentions that the success story of Metaplanet is so crazy. It says that Bitcoin hauler stock surged for 1,000% in Japan during the crypto rally, meaning that the stock went up by 4,000%, with MicroStrategy making headlines and Metaplanet making headlines. And now the international press is picking this up too. And here comes the Financial Times article on it, where it also says in the commentary, historical trends in the financial sector have repeatedly shown that broader institutional acceptance contributes to reduced volatility over time and supports the ongoing maturation of an asset class. And that is ultimately a very, very good sign, because if the volatility goes down, then the whole asset becomes interesting for even more people, because many people are still afraid of the volatility and say, okay, hey, I don't want such a volatile asset, especially when I have to manage money for other clients, or have to manage money as a fund or something like that, or as a pension fund or something. So in the end, you can only make a very small allocation because the volatility is just too high. When you have to invest money like this, especially as a fund or asset manager, you sometimes need to invest it in a way that it's available at any time. And you should really only buy Bitcoin if you have a time horizon of about 5 or 6 years. But if you have access to it at any time as a fund or something like that, it has to be liquid at any time. Then you can only trade with very, very small allocations, because otherwise the volatility is too high and ultimately there is a risk of loss. And that's why it's so important for the volatility to go down. And that's very clear. Many experts believe that right now, due to institutional acceptance, the volatility will decrease in the long run. And now there's actually a new statement from Samson Mow, who is really making a clear case here. A lot of people underestimate that. That's probably one of the biggest dangers for Bitcoin that a lot of people aren't even aware of. And the crazy thing is, it's actually a different danger than you might originally think. That means you think, okay, there is some kind of danger, I don't know, aliens are attacking code errors, quantum computers, or whatever else. But Samson Mow is really talking about a completely different danger than what most people imagine. Take a look at it.
The danger, it's really that you don't have any Bitcoin. Because if Bitcoin becomes a new reserve asset for the world and you don't have it, then you're going to be down bad. So there is a point at which I think you won't be able to buy Bitcoin. You won't be able to buy it with dollars or with yen or with the euro. You just work for it. You exchange your time for Bitcoin in the future. So the best is to buy now when you can still exchange fiat monies for Bitcoin.
So the best time to buy is now while you can still trade fiat dollars for Bitcoin. the attack of some bot armies or whatever, the attack of any nations that want to shut down the Bitcoin network or something like that. But the biggest danger with Bitcoin is yourself. The biggest danger with Bitcoin is sleeping on it, ignoring it, and not buying any Bitcoin. And above all, he makes the case that if Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset, like if several nation states such as El Salvador or other countries are already building Bitcoin reserves, it's also suspected that a lot of people are currently doing this behind the scenes. But if Bitcoin really becomes a legitimate reserve asset, publicly, then the big danger is if you don't have any Bitcoin. And now you can basically front run the whole thing. Many states have decided. They've already secretly filled their pockets. But right now you can still use this window of opportunity to really stock up. And Samson Mow also says here, if Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset and you don't have any Bitcoin, then it's just super stupid. You can't get any dumber than this. And the crazy thing is, we still have this window of opportunity where you can trade paper money, what I call worthless, toilet paper tokens for hard Bitcoin. That means this window of opportunity will eventually close. I mean, you shouldn't let FOMO get to you or anything. That's probably not going to happen in the next 10 years or so. We also have stablecoins where the fiat currency will probably be extended, and so on. But it's definitely an interesting perspective from Samson Mow, saying that we should really take advantage of this window of opportunity where we can still exchange paper currency for Bitcoin. Because at some point, it might be that you can only work for Bitcoin. So that means Peter Schiff is going to have to clean toilets or something. They're coming to you for the Bitcoin because otherwise they won't get any Bitcoin anymore. Of course, there will always be some kind of exchange options where you can swap other assets like gold or stocks for Bitcoin or something like that. But ultimately, this is a very, very relevant danger that Samson Mow is opening up here, one that almost nobody has on their radar because most people always look at external effects. They look to see if there are any external threats, any countries that could attack the protocol, any hackers who might have bad motivations or something like that. But no, the greatest danger is sitting right in front of you, or it is not sitting in front of you, but it's basically you yourself. And this is really a topic where you need to think about whether you're set up correctly here. If you're not set up properly here yet, I'll definitely drop a link for you below. 21 Bitcoin, where you can easily, safely, and simply buy Bitcoin. Here, you can get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin with the code. So I absolutely recommend it for beginners, pros, and a lot more. A lot of people have also written that they want to come here to the pool to swim. So feel free to stop by here at Cuatro Amigos in El Salvador. But there are also more exciting things happening here in the background, like this, where it simply means that the payment service provider Klarna is going to open up to crypto. This was recently shared by CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski. In the end, there is also a statement about it. It says the last big fintech in the world that uses it. Someone had to be the last one. And that is also a kind of milestone. And that's pretty much how I often talk about it. Bitcoin is ultimately a technology that takes you to the next level, that makes your life better, that simplifies your life, and of course, maybe even takes your company to the next level. And even if you're the last one here, because I've said before, the biggest danger is missing out on Bitcoin, not being involved here. But even if you miss it, and if you don't realize the danger of not having any Bitcoin here, even if you miss the whole thing and then only in 10 years, if you buy Bitcoin, it's still better to decide to jump in as the last one than to not get into Bitcoin at all. Just like if you were to switch from a horse to a car today, even if you might have missed out on the automobile and are maybe the last one to get on board, it's still better to switch to a car after 20 or 30 years, once the innovation is already there, because it's just so much more efficient. Unless you want to say, okay, I'm sticking to the old school. I just want to give up the efficiency advantages. Everyone else is using some kind of bazookas. I'm still using stones to defend myself. Everyone else is using cars. Everyone else is using some kind of smartphone. And I'm still using smoke signals to communicate. You can definitely do that. Some people do it too. And maybe it makes some people happy because they just love old technology or something like that. But if you really want to be fully efficient here, then ultimately you have to make sure that you move with the times. And if you don't keep up with the times, then time will leave you behind. We can see here that Japan is starting to open up a bit. News just arrived. Japan lifts ban on Bitcoin ETFs and cuts taxes. Crypto assets from 55 to 20%. In a whole lot of regions, we're just seeing that the regulations are getting better. It's not exactly legal tender or anything, but these are just a whole bunch of little key pieces coming together right now. In most countries, things are really looking positive. Then an ETF opens up here, then a company joins in, and then the regulations get a little looser. And so on. There are a few countries where there's uncertainty. You could maybe say, okay, does the EU really want to move more towards Bitcoin? Tend to be less so. But the general trend worldwide is definitely there, that people are opening up to Bitcoin. And now I want to introduce something important to you all. In the last few years here on YouTube, or not just YouTube, in the Bitcoin community in general, I've learned that Bitcoin isn't just about buying and holding. It's a community. Bitcoin is people. And Bitcoin is a project that's bigger than any of us. It's about people who believe in something bigger together. And now a lot of people have asked me what's going on with Mila. And she wants to show you her charm now. Jump. Wow. All right, folks, see you later. Peace out.